I had an unusual career path. When I finished my undergraduate work, my degree was in mathematics, and I went to work for IBM and learned a lot about computers and computer programming. But I got a little tired of doing that type of work, so I decided to go back for a master's degree about 9 years later, and my master's is in cell and molecular biology. And then I had a daughter, and 9 years after that, I went back to school and got a PhD in nutrition. So it's an unusual career path, but it turns out degrees in math, molecular biology, and nutrition intersect very nicely, and it's made it possible for me to do some studies and some research projects that are, I think, fairly unique. My doctorate is in nutrition from UC Berkeley, University of California at Berkeley, and I was fortunate enough to have as my major advisor Doris Calloway, who's a legend in nutrition. And thanks to Doris, I was able to make some wonderful connections, both nationally and internationally. And she really started me on the road to international nutrition studies, and that's been a very satisfying part of my career. I've worked quite a bit in Africa, but also I've become more and more interested in international nutrition policy guidelines, and so I've been able to serve on a number of international committees and advisory groups. I think this has been a particularly interesting meeting. I think we always learn so much from the work going on in other countries. Certainly the U.S. is a leader in nutrition research, but we can always learn from the work that's being done in other countries. And because I'm the treasurer of IUNS, the sponsor of the meeting, I get to participate in some of the organization ahead of time, which makes it particularly nice then to see it all come to fruition at the ICN. There are many, but if I had to rank them, I think my work at the Institute of Medicine has probably been the most satisfying. So I began my career as what was called a population nutritionist, looking at the health and the risk factors for large populations. And that became of interest to several groups doing reports for the Food and Nutrition Board of the Institute of Medicine. And I was fortunate to be asked to chair a committee on the WIC program. And it was a wonderful committee, and we made really very major recommendations for changes to the WIC program, for example, adding fresh fruits and vegetables. And indeed, the Department of Agriculture liked our recommendations, and they have now become the standard for WIC. So things like that I think are particularly satisfying. I've also served on the school meals committee that changed the regulations or made recommendations for changes in school lunch and school breakfast, and I've also chaired a committee on child and adult daycare nutrition standards. So when you can alter a program, like school meals affects 30 million children every day, when you can increase the quality of the lunch they get, that's a pretty good career achievement, so I'm quite proud of that work. In the almost 15 years I've been in Hawaii, Honolulu, I've been working at a cancer center. I've been retired for almost 3 years, but I'm still very interested in nutrition and cancer. And I think that experience gave me some, perhaps, suggestions of how things might be going in the future, at least in studying diet and chronic diseases like cancer. I think the concept of personalized nutrition is certainly important, but at a population level, I think looking at the intersection of genes and environment is really where the advances are going to be made. We already know that certain genetic profiles have a higher risk of cancer, and that diet affects people differently depending on their genes. It makes sense, but now we have the tools to be able to really look at individual genetics. So I think that's not only going to affect personalized medicine on a clinical individual basis, but also is going to lead to much greater understanding when we do these large studies, and it will help us understand who's really at risk for these diseases and what groups of people we need to counsel on better diets and specific changes in their diets. I think it's going to revolutionize nutrition. I think it's a very exciting field to be in. When I first started in nutrition, I know some of my fellow students said, well, we know everything now. All the vitamins have been discovered, and what's left to do in nutrition? But I think they were wrong. We've realized now that we've just scratched the surface of nutrition, and the public has become so much more aware of the importance of diet. I think the time is right to really do good research, understand risk factors for diseases, and help the public turn around some of the problems we have today, like obesity. And because I've worked so much in international nutrition, I'm very hopeful when I come to a meeting like this, and I see so many young investigators from Africa and Latin America that have so much energy and enthusiasm, and I think, we could solve some of the world's problems of this double burden of malnutrition and obesity. It's meetings like this where the young people get together and come up with new ideas that I think are so important for the future of our